He was a cold-hearted millionaire focused only on business until a little girl pointed at his heart. She was homeless, hungry, and forgotten until one small finger changed her whole destiny. Roman Carter stepped out of the cool, glassy walls of his billion-dollar office building into the warm sunlight. His expensive shoes clicked sharply against the pavement as he loosened his black tie, bored of the dull boardroom voices echoing in his head. In his hand, he held a lunch tray, untouched steak, garlic potatoes with butter, a colorful fruit bowl, and a glass bottle of fresh mango juice. The finest his in-house chef could offer. But Roman had lost interest in food long ago. Meetings filled his stomach. Profit reports fed his soul. Or so he thought. As he moved toward his sleek black car parked outside, something made him pause. Across the street, just beyond the tall iron gate of his company's café garden, sat a small girl on a worn wooden bench. She wasn't playing. She wasn't talking. She just sat there, very still. Roman squinted. She was tiny, no older than 7, maybe 6. Her light brown hair was tied in a crooked ponytail. Her oversized sweatshirt slipped off one shoulder. Her jeans were torn at both knees. She had no socks, only a pair of dusty pink sandals that looked 2 sizes too big. In her lap sat a raggedy gray backpack, hugged to her chest like a life raft. Roman watched as she shifted nervously, glancing toward the cafe, her eyes darting to the plates being carried out, then quickly looking away. Hunger painted her face like a silent scream. He should have kept walking. He never stopped. He never interfered. But that day, something unseen grabbed his chest. He crossed the street without thinking. The little girl froze when she saw him coming. Her body tensed. She clutched the backpack tighter. She didn't move, didn't blink. Just stared with wide, tired eyes that looked too old for her little face. Roman stopped 2 feet from her. He knelt. "Hey!" His voice was calm but not cold. "Are you hungry?" She didn't speak, just stared. Her lips parted slightly. Roman waited. Then slowly, cautiously, she gave a tiny nod. He looked at the untouched food in his hand. He placed it gently on the bench beside her. No big speech. No sympathy, just kindness. Then he stood, turned, and walked back across the street without another word. Behind him, he barely heard the softest whisper. "Thank you." He froze for a second. The voice was so small, so fragile, it could have been the wind. But it wasn't. Roman kept walking, but his steps were slower now. He didn't understand why, but something had shifted in him. Something small, something warm. That tiny thank you echoed in his chest louder than any business deal ever had. And though he didn't know it yet, that little girl would become the most important person in his entire world. The next morning, Roman Carter's driver pulled up to the curb as usual. Roman stepped out, briefcase in hand, phone already buzzing with messages and numbers. But his eyes weren't on the screen. They were searching for her. And there she was, still on that same bench, sitting quietly like a forgotten note in the middle of a loud city. But today, something was different. She wasn't completely alone. In her arms, she cradled a small stuffed rabbit. It was missing one ear, and its fur had turned gray with dust and love. But the way she held it, tight against her chest, it was clearly her only friend. Roman paused near the bench again. This time he didn't hesitate. He crouched down, gently setting a paper bag next to her. The smell of warm scrambled eggs, toast, and melted cheese filled the air. "Still hungry?" he asked softly. She looked up at him, lips dry, her stomach already reacting before her words could. She gave a small nod. Roman watched her little fingers rip open the bag as if it held gold. She took a single bite, then stopped. His eyes widened when she turned toward the stuffed rabbit and whispered, "You can have the first bite, Mr. Buttons." Roman's chest tightened. After a few bites, her cheeks pinkened. The warmth of food filled her cold body. She looked up at him through long lashes. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl paused. Her voice was shy and quiet, but it carried years of sadness behind it. "Lily." It was the first time he'd heard her name. A small, beautiful name, pure, soft, like a flower trying to grow through concrete. Roman nodded. That's a good name. He hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling him since yesterday. Where's your mom or dad? Lily's tiny fingers tightened around the rabbit. Her eyes dropped to the ground. I don't know. A silence fell between them, heavy and painful. Roman didn't speak right away, but his hand went into his suit pocket. He pulled out a clean, cream-colored business card and handed it to her. This building, he said, pointing to the tall tower just behind them, is mine. If you ever need a place to go, walk in. Ask for me. She stared at the card like it was a key to a kingdom. The next day, Roman sat in a meeting with 6 board members discussing fuel rates. But his mind wasn't there. He kept glancing toward the glass walls behind him, toward the entrance. Then his secretary knocked softly. Sir, there's a little girl downstairs, holding a janitor's hand. She says she's here to see you. Roman stood up immediately without a word, shocking everyone in the room. When he reached the lobby, there she was. Lily, dressed in the same sweatshirt, backpack slung on one shoulder, Mr. Buttons held tightly in one arm, but this time she wasn't looking down. She was looking up at him. The janitor smiled and gently let go of her hand. Found her waiting outside, said she was told to come here. Roman knelt beside her. You made it, he said. She nodded. Her eyes said more than her mouth ever could. From that day on, Roman kept his promise. He gave her a small room on the upper floor of his building's guest wing. Was far more brilliant than anyone in that building had guessed, Roman whispered under his breath. Lily, what else are you hiding in that quiet little mind? At first, the staff thought Lily was just a quiet girl, a lost child the CEO was helping out of charity. They smiled politely. They nodded as she walked past. But that changed. When Lily's drawings helped fix a $1 million logistics problem, the smiles began to fade. They didn't like how often Roman praised her. They didn't like that her crayon art hung on his office wall. And most of all, they didn't like how human he was becoming. The man who once ran meetings with an iron grip was now asking about snack breaks. The man who once barked orders now chuckled when Lily handed him her reports. In the break room, the whispers grew louder. That girl, she's a nobody, just some street kid from who knows where. I heard he lets her stay in the building. Isn't that against policy? He used to fire people for being 5 minutes late. Now he's coloring with a child? One man even laughed and muttered, Next, she'll be running the company. Lily wasn't supposed to hear them, but she did. She stood frozen behind a vending machine, holding Mr. Buttons in one arm and a crayon in the other. Her small face fell. Her heart, which had just begun to trust, cracked again. That night she didn't eat dinner. The next morning her bed remained untouched. The pancakes Roman's chef made her grew cold on the plate. Roman noticed. He climbed the stairs himself and gently knocked on her door. Lily, it's me. No answer. He pushed the door open slowly. She sat on the floor, wrapped in her blanket, clutching her rabbit so tight its seams were starting to fray. Her eyes were red, her voice barely a whisper. I heard what they said. Roman's chest tightened. You don't have to keep me. I know I don't belong here. I'm just nothing. Roman knelt beside her. Lily, he said, his voice trembling, you are not nothing. You're the smartest, kindest little girl I've ever met. She didn't look at him. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. They're wrong, he said. They only say those things because they're afraid. You see what they don't. You understand things they never will. Her lip quivered. But I don't talk much. I don't know fancy words. I don't even know where my parents are. You don't have to, Roman said. You don't need big words or fancy clothes. You just need your heart. And Lily, yours is gold. He opened his arms without a word. Lily hesitated. Then, slowly, she crawled into his chest and held on. Roman hugged her tightly. And as he did, he realized something that shocked him. That moment, right there, meant more to him than every dollar he'd ever earned. A week after the whispers had shaken Lily's confidence, something much bigger shook the entire building. It started with a single alert on the mainframe. Shipment X92, location unknown. That alert turned into 10 more, then 40. Then the whole tracking system turned red. Roman's billion-dollar company had lost a massive international shipment. Millions in products had vanished from the system. Worse, they were already overdue. The IT department scrambled. Operations yelled. Executives cursed. Blame flew like knives in every direction. Somebody hacked us. Did we get scammed? Call the ports. Call the trucking firms. We're being robbed blind. Roman Carter stood at the top of the chaos, cold sweat dripping down his back. His perfectly ordered world was falling apart, and fast. By 7:30 p.m., the office was in full-blown crisis mode. Desks were cluttered with empty coffee cups, glowing monitors, and exhausted eyes. Phones kept ringing. Nothing made sense. Roman sat alone in his office, tie loosened, head in his hands. The skyline outside was quiet, but inside, everything burned. Then, a soft knock. He looked up. Lily stood at the door, wearing her favorite pink hoodie, holding a folded paper in her hand. She walked in slowly, not scared, but careful. "Am I interrupting?" she asked softly. Roman sat up. "No, never." She placed her sketch on his desk. I was looking at the truck pictures again," she said, pointing at the crayon map she'd drawn from memory. Roman blinked. Lily tapped one part of her sketch. "This truck shows up 3 times, but it's supposed to go one way, not 3, right?" Roman leaned in. His heart began to pound. She was right. A single truck ID was being copied over 3 routes it never drove. It wasn't hacking. It was a glitch in the rerouting software, a coding error duplicating false information. The real shipment hadn't vanished. It was sitting untouched at a border port because it had never been properly scanned out. Roman stared at her, stunned. "How did you see that?" he asked, his voice hushed. Lily shrugged. "I just remember the truck numbers. They were in the pictures from last week." Roman grabbed his phone. He called logistics, IT, the shipping company, the port authority. By midnight, the truth was confirmed. The products were safe, delayed, but found. No hacking, no theft, just a glitch no adult had noticed, but Lily did. The crisis was over, because of her. Roman turned back to Lily, his voice low with emotion. "You saved us again." She smiled shyly and hugged Mr. Buttons tighter. The next morning, Lily walked into the office just before breakfast. But this time, the whispers were gone. Instead, the staff stood. Applause erupted down the hallway. Some clapped, some smiled wide, others even cheered. The same people who had once doubted her now looked at her with awe. "And Lily?" She just blushed and whispered to Roman, "Can I get pancakes after this?" He chuckled. "You can have a whole stack." Months turned into seasons. And in that quiet mansion once ruled by silence and luxury, now echoed the sound of laughter, small, bright, innocent. Lily no longer clutched bread in fear. She held pencils, books, dreams. She no longer slept on benches. But under the softest blankets Roman could find, wrapped in warmth she'd never known, Roman enrolled her in the most prestigious school. He hired a gentle tutor who brought learning alive for Lily, through play, through kindness. Every evening, Roman left his empire behind just to sit across from her at the dinner table. They shared stories over mashed potatoes. She giggled when he tried her homework and got it wrong. She drew pictures of him, stick figures in suits with wide smiles. She placed them on the fridge. It was the first time in Roman's life that anything went on his fridge. But one night changed everything. They were on the balcony, stars above. She wore pink pajamas with bunnies, her hair braided by the maid who now called her Little Boss. Lily looked up at Roman, eyes big and soft. "Can I call you, Dad?" The words hit him like a whisper and a storm. He froze, the world blurred. Tears rose fast, burning his eyes, making his breath catch. "Yes," he said, voice cracking like broken glass. "I'd love that, sweetheart." She hugged him, small arms wrapping around his waist. And Roman, who once believed he had everything, realized this was the moment he had it all. Years flew by. Lily grew. She became a sharp thinker. She joined school competitions, solved puzzles no one else could. She made teachers cry with joy and classmates believe in kindness again. And then, one day, Roman brought her to his company's biggest annual event. He introduced her, hand on her shoulder. "This is Lily, my daughter." Gasps echoed. In that room were CEOs, bankers, families. Some of them had once whispered about that dirty street girl he took in. They now stared in awe. Lily stood tall in a lavender dress, her crayon necklace still hidden beneath it. Because that crayon, the one that once saved Roman's company, was never just wax. It was her magic, her voice, her proof that unseen children matter. Roman announced something next. A foundation under her name, the Lily Grace Project. Its mission? To find other Lilies, children sleeping on cold benches, children ignored by people too busy to care, children who, with just a chance, could change the world. He ended his speech with a line that silenced every skeptic. "I adopted a little girl to give her a life, but in truth, she gave me mine." And as Lily stepped forward to wave at the crowd, her smile lit the room, not with wealth, not with status, but with the undeniable power of being seen, healed, and finally, loved. Lesson: never judge someone for being poor. The person you ignore today could be the one who changes your life forever. A warm bed with soft blankets, shelves of books and toys, clean clothes folded with care, and food. So much food, but more than anything, he gave her safety. And for the first time in a long time, Lily slept in peace, knowing someone cared. Lily had been living in the company's guest suite for nearly a week. She still barely spoke, not because she was rude or shy, but because she was careful. Words to her were not toys. They were earned, saved, spent only when needed. But her silence didn't mean she had no voice. She had crayons. Every day, after school lessons with the private tutor Roman had arranged, Lily would sit quietly in the corner of the staff lounge with a box of crayons and blank printer paper. While the adults walked past her with coffee cups and reports, she would draw. Not flowers or princesses or sunshine like other kids. She drew boxes, lines, dots, paths, shapes that didn't make sense to anyone. Until the day Roman wandered in. He had come to the lounge for a break between meetings, not expecting to find anything interesting. But on the table, neatly stacked like a report, were 8 colorful pages. His brow furrowed. Each page showed a strange grid, roads, trucks, loading docks. It looked like routes. "Who made these?" he asked aloud. A secretary replied, "Lily, I think. She draws them every day." Roman picked up the top page and stared harder. Red lines went in spirals, green arrows zigzagged. One area was heavily circled. It looked oddly familiar. Roman walked out without another word and headed straight to the logistics department. "Get me Mark now," he told his assistant. Minutes later, the head of logistics stood in Roman's office, confused as his boss placed a crayon drawing on the conference table. "This came from a 7-year-old, Roman said flatly. "Tell me if it means anything." Mark studied it, then chuckled. "Looks like a cute map." Roman didn't laugh. "Look closer." A moment passed, then another, and suddenly, Mark's expression changed. He bent forward, his finger tracing one of the red crayon lines. These match our truck routes to the Eastern Shipping Hub." Roman folded his arms. "And?" Mark's voice dropped. "This spot she circled, it's exactly where we've had fuel loss. 3 reroutes a week through that lane. We thought it was normal." Roman stared at the page. Lily had unknowingly exposed a critical flaw in their system, something the trained logistics team had missed for months, a route that was burning extra fuel, wasting time, and bleeding money. "How much has that mistake cost us?" Roman asked quietly. Mark swallowed. "Close to $2.3 million over the last quarter." Roman sat down slowly. She hadn't said a word. But she had spoken louder than any boardroom analyst ever had, with crayons and silence. He looked down at the drawing again and felt a chill. This wasn't luck. This was a gift. And the little girl he once saw as fragile,